Welcome! Are you ready to level up your vocabulary? In the next few minutes, we're going to master 25 new English words that you'll definitely see on your tests. Now, the secret here isn't just memorizing. It's about understanding how the words connect to each other. So, we're going to group them into simple, easy-to-remember categories to make them really stick. Let's get into it. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into words about people, who's an insider and who's an outsider. Then we'll tackle words for praising, scolding, and even hiding ideas. After that, we'll get into knowledge and stories, and even a mini story about making and breaking rules. And finally, we'll wrap up with some great words for actions and just describing the world. So let's jump right into our first category. All right, first up, let's talk about people. These words are all about describing different types of people and how we interact with them, whether we're welcoming them in or, pushing them out. Our first word is neophyte. It sounds a little fancy, right? But it just means a beginner, a total newcomer. Anyone who's new to a team, a hobby, or any kind of activity is a neophyte. Let's see how you might use it. So you could say something like, as a neophyte in the chess club, I had to learn the basic rules. Or, the cooking class is for neophytes who have never baked a cake. In both situations, it's just a slightly more formal way of saying beginner. Simple as that. Okay, now what about when someone gets pushed out of a group? We've got two great words for this, ostracize and oust. To ostracize someone is social. It's when a group of friends or coworkers decides to ignore you or freeze you out. But to oust someone is much more official. It means to force them out of a position of power, like a job or a leadership role. And these examples really show that difference. The other children would ostracize him on the playground. That's a social thing, right? It's about feelings and relationships. But after the scandal, the company board voted to oust the CEO. Now that's an official action. So just remember, ostracize is social and oust is official. Next up, let's compare two totally opposite behaviors. Someone who is nonchalant is super calm, cool, and casual. They act like nothing's a big deal. The complete opposite of that is being obtrusive. That's when you stand out in a bad way. You're way too loud, too pushy, or just kind of annoying. For instance, she was surprisingly nonchalant about passing her final exam. It means she was acting really cool and unfazed about it. On the other hand, the tourist's obtrusive camera was annoying to the local residents. In this case, the camera was too noticeable, too in your face. So one is calm and casual, the other is pushy and annoying. Okay, we've talked about people. Now let's move on to our second section, which is all about ideas. These words help us talk about how we express our thoughts, whether we're praising something, criticizing it, or maybe even hiding it. So we've got 4 words here that cover a whole range of ideas. A panegyric is basically a speech that is just packed with praise. It's all positive. The opposite of that would be opprobrious, which describes language that's full of insults and harsh criticism. Then you have the occult, which refers to things that are hidden, secret, or even supernatural. And finally, nirvana. That's a state of perfect happiness and peace. Let's plug these into some sentences to see how they work. The book was a panegyric praising the life of the famous scientist. The politician was shouted down with opprobrious language. He was interested in the occult and read books about ghosts. And for the busy mother, a quiet afternoon was a state of nirvana. See how each word paints a really different picture? All right, section 3. This one's all about knowledge. These next words help us describe systems of information, the kinds of stories we tell, and whether or not someone knows, everything. So first up is nomenclature. It's just a fancy word for a system of names, like the kind you find in biology or chemistry. Then there's parable. A parable isn't just any story. It's a simple story told specifically to teach a lesson. And if someone is omniscient, that means they know absolutely everything. They're all-knowing. Okay, let's see these in action. The nomenclature of biology includes terms like genus and species. See, it's just the naming system. The teacher told a parable about kindness to her students. That's a story with a moral. And in the novel, the narrator is omniscient and knows every character's thoughts. That means the narrator knows it all. Okay, this next group of words is really cool because they actually tell a story. It's a little story about power, how rules get made, and then what can happen to those rules. So think of it like this. Step 1, you might have an oligarchy. That's a small, powerful group of people who are in charge. Step 2, this group might create an ordinance, which is just a local law or regulation. But then in step 3, someone else, maybe a court, could come along and nullify that rule, which means they cancel it, making it totally powerless. It's a whole story in 3 words. Let's trace that story one more time with our examples. The country was an oligarchy run by a few wealthy families. There's our ruling group. The city passed an ordinance that banned smoking in parks. There's the rule they made. And the court's decision will nullify the old agreement, and there's the cancellation of that rule. See how they fit together? Okay, moving on. Now we're going to talk about words that help us describe the world around us, the things we see, feel, and experience with our senses. Now, this next word, objective, is super important to get right, mostly because it has 2 very different common meanings. First, an objective can just be a goal. For example, my objective is to learn all these words. But objective can also mean being neutral, impartial, and fair. It means you base your decisions on facts, not on your personal feelings. So you might say a good judge must be objective. So remember, objective can mean a goal, or it can mean being fair and factual. And let's check out 4 more fantastic words for describing things. Olfactory is a scientific-sounding word that's all about your sense of smell. Pallor describes the paleness you might see on someone's face if they're sick or really scared. Nomadic describes a lifestyle of wandering from place to place without a permanent home. And a pandemic is a disease that spreads over a huge area, like a whole country or even the entire world. And here's how you might hear them used. The dog has a strong olfactory sense. Simple enough. We could see the pallor of his face after he saw the ghost. The tribe led a nomadic life following the animals they hunted. And the world prepared for the flu pandemic. Each one gives you a very clear, specific image. All right, we're on the home stretch. This is our last section, and it's all about actions and concepts. These are really useful words you'll see all the time in your reading. Okay, let's knock out these last 5. First, to oscillate is to swing back and forth, just like a fan does. Next is osmosis. If you learn something by osmosis, it means you just kind of absorb it slowly and naturally by being around it. Then we have overture, which is an opening move or a first offer, like in a negotiation. If something is palatable, it means it's acceptable or pleasing, usually when talking about food. And finally, if 2 things are parallel, it means they are very similar or comparable. And there you have it, 25 new words, all organized and explained so you can really remember them. You've just added some great tools to your vocabulary toolkit. So here's my question for you. Which one of these new words are you most excited to try out? Pick one and see if you can use it today. Go on, put your new knowledge into practice.